Okay, so last time we took a closer look at Half-Life, Valve's magnum opus, and at the end of that video, I said that I'd be doing Opposing Force and Blue Shift next, the two expansion packs released for the PC.
Sounds interesting.
Both Opposing Force and Blue Shift were developed by Gearbox software, and you know what that means? Both of these games were worked on by Mr. Badass himself. Opposing Force got released first, back in 1999, so we'll start from there. Okay, so Opposing Force takes place during the events of the original Half-Life, and in it you will, as the name implies, take the role of one of the opposing forces from the original game. In this case, you play as Adrian Shepard, a Marine in the HECU sent to clean up the mess in Black Mesa. At the very beginning of the game, your plane gets shot down and you wake up in a hospital room at the facility, saved by the scientist staff. While you are going around trying to get your bearings, the orders for Forget About Freeman come through, so your objective is to try and get the hell out of Black Mesa.
Shepard, you're alive. Listen, things went up pretty bad and orders are coming down to pull out. Pull out. Apparently they've got other plans for Black Mesa now. If you can make your way through the transit system, you can probably reach the surface where we are pulling out. Good luck. Over.
Come in, Cooper. Do you copy? Forget about Freeman. We're abandoning the base. If you have any last bomb targets, mark them on the tactical map. Otherwise, get the hell out of there. Repeat, we are pulling out and commencing airstrikes. Give us targets or get below.
Obviously, this fails due to the G-Man interfering yet again, leaving you stranded in the facility. Furthermore, it appears that the men in power did not want to leave any traces, so they sent in a Black Ops team to nuke the entire place, with you and your Marine buddies still in it. And while all of this is happening, yet another alien race has begun their invasion, this time Race X. So now, amidst all this clusterfuck, you have to find a way to disarm the damn nuke and somehow escape this hellhole, all the while being carefully observed by the G-Man, just like in Half-Life. Okay, moving on, what about the gameplay? Well, it's largely the same as Half-Life, but with a few new twists and quirks. You're still moving in a linear fashion, shooting various aliens and human enemies, though the Marines are now replaced with Black Ops operatives, obviously, all the while doing the odd puzzle and platforming in between. The biggest changes to the gameplay lie in your arsenal. Opposing Force spices up the combat by giving you some new weapons to play around with, while replacing some of the old ones. So you get a wrench and a knife instead of the crowbar. The wrench is incredibly useful, you have a standard and a charged up attack, which deals way more damage, while the knife just swings incredibly fast. It's really not that great. In the pistol slots, you get a Desert Eagle instead of the revolver, and I personally enjoy the Deagle more. The alt-fire switches the laser pointer on and off, which greatly influences your accuracy. The crossbow is replaced by an actual sniper rifle, and finally, instead of the Hive launcher, you get the Shock Roach, an alien weapon carried by the Race X shock troops. In my honest opinion, the Shock Blaster is a lot more useful than the Hive launcher, as you actually have a feeling of doing damage with the damn thing, while the Hive launcher felt like a fucking BB gun. Oh, and when you kill a shock trooper, there's a random chance that the roach will attack you. As for the new weapons, you'll get your hands on the saw, a barnacle, an organic alien spore launcher, and a displacer cannon. All of these are super fun to use. The saw absolutely shreds through enemies. And your ammo. The displacer acts like a BFG, except it yeets the enemies into their own dimension, while the alt-fire acts as a self-teleporter to various locations in Zen and Black Mesa, where you can find some extra supplies. The barnacle allows you to grapple to certain locations, and it can Scorpio your enemies. The organic spore launchers fires these greenish balls that explode on contact, and I just love the reloading animation for this thing. The way you feed it is just so cute and super creative. Oh yeah, you also get the night vision goggles instead of the flashlight, and thank fucking god for this change. The flashlight in Cold Source engine games is just fucking awful, and it was one of the negatives that I forgot to mention in my original Half-Life video, so yeah, I'm saying it now, the flashlight fucking sucks. Another interesting thing in Opposing Force is the way they built upon the friendly NPC mechanic. In the original Half-Life, you could ask scientists to heal you, security guards could help you out, and both of them could interact with door scanners. While in Opposing Force, you'll have the opportunity to fight alongside your fellow Marines as well. Your Marine buddies come in several different classes, but the most important ones are the Engineer and the Medic. The Medic can heal you, while the Engineer carries a welder and is needed to open certain doors so you can progress. Apart from these guys, you also get the standard Marines who carry around shotguns and MP5s, and they are surprisingly really useful in combat scenarios. You find these guys either at certain points in the campaign, or you call them using one of those radios you've seen lying around in the original game.
I hear you loud and clear. We'll move to your position.
Congratulations, soldier! You're no longer a low-life maggot! I'm proud to say you are a soldier! I'm sure you'll be a credit to your unit! Now report to duty, soldier!
Of course, you'll still come across the regular Black Mesa staff, and since you never got the order to shoot these guys, you can interact with them freely. The only negative side to this is that sometimes the friendly AI can fall behind when following you, so you have to go back to get them. Visually speaking, Opposing Force looks just like Half-Life, which is nothing surprising really, this is an expansion pack after all. The new Race X aliens are visually distinct from the regular Zen creatures, but I find it funny how some of them have just this one big eye looking at you. Final thoughts on Opposing Force is that this expansion pack is really good. It takes all the best elements from Half-Life, tightens them up pretty nicely. The combat is enjoyable, the new environments you visit serve their purpose of oh my gosh. The combat is enjoyable, the new environments you visit serve their purpose of expanding Black Mesa as this ginormous research facility, and Gearbox really did their best to present the Resonance Cascade and subsequent events from a different perspective. However, this wasn't Gearbox's last dive into the Half-Life franchise. Two years later, in 2001, Gearbox released Blue Shift, another expansion pack. However, this expansion pack is not as good as Opposing Force. Now don't get me wrong, I still like it, it's just not on the same level as Opposing Force. Anyway, this time around, you're in the shoes of Barney... Oh. You're in the shoes of Barney Calhoun, one of the security guards in Black Mesa, who gets a much more prominent role in Half-Life 2. And you get to witness the events of the Resonance Cascade from his perspective. Barney. We are introduced to another character, Dr. Rosenberg, who was captured by the HECU. Your task is to free him, so he can power up some of Black Mesa's teleportation technology, so that you can escape the facility. The first thing you'll notice is that Blue Shift is incredibly short. It will only take you 2 to 3 hours tops on a first time playthrough. On the other hand, Opposing Force is easily double the length. What doesn't help either is that some of the level design is not that great. It's really embarrassing to admit, but at one point in the game, I didn't know where to go, even though the game is pretty linear. Basically, you're moving through a canal, and you see a lift right next to the sewage water, which is flowing towards a grinder. The logical conclusion would be that you need to take this lift in order to go up. However, what you should have done is go a couple of rooms back to a walkway from which you came and look for this secret ladder on the other side of this fucking pipe. It took me about 10 minutes to figure this shit out, as I was going back and forth through this area looking for a power switch or something because I thought the elevator was supposed to be powered up because it wasn't working. I also thought my game broke because Blue Shift does have some game-breaking bugs which occur at random intervals. This is bad level design, especially for Half-Life standards, as neither Opposing Force nor the original Half-Life had anything remotely similar. You always knew where you needed to go next, or you'd spend a relatively short amount of time trying to figure it out. As for the gameplay, it's by and large the same as before, though you have access to way fewer weapons this time around. You will only get your hands on the Glock, revolver, MP5, shotgun, rocket launcher, and a few explosives. No experimental weapons, no crossbow, no opposing force, marine guns, nothing. And okay, this does make sense from a narrative standpoint. Black Mesa is a big facility, and Barney did not visit the same areas as Gordon or Adrian. And besides, Barney is a security guard. He isn't a highly trained marine, nor a theoretical physicist, so he won't have access to high tier weaponry. But still, this severely limits the gameplay aspect and it makes your choices in combat far more limited. The same applies to enemies, as you will only be facing stock Half-Life monsters and marines, no Race X creatures this time around. Barney is also further limited in the sense that he doesn't have the HEV suit, so the way armor works now is that you have to find and pick up quests and helmets to restore armor. You'll find HEV stationed throughout the facility, but you can't use them. And you know what? This is actually a really nice touch, and I like this change. Anyway, thanks to these changes, in essence, the combat throughout Blue Shift feels a lot like some of the earlier levels in Half-Life 1, save for a few encounters. And one last thing. I mentioned some game-breaking bugs before. They appear to happen randomly and not to everyone, however they can be annoying. Personally, I experienced this weird mouse glitch at the very beginning of the game, but this is easily fixed. You just have to enable raw mouse option in the settings and you're good to go. There's also the possibility of the opening tram ride to stop dead in its tracks, forcing you to restart the map. Some other people have reported certain elevator bugs as well, so just a heads up that Blue Shift can be glitchy at times. Okay, enough with the bad stuff. It's time I said why I actually like this expansion pack despite its shortcomings. Well, first of all, Blue Shift has a phenomenal opening sequence. Both Half-Life and Opposing Force did really well in establishing the characters and the setting, but Blue Shift really went all out. Seeing Black Mesa from Barney's perspective still filled with life, angry scientists and annoyed security guards running around, solving different problems throughout the facility, really bumps up the immersion factor by a lot. The best part about it is that you, as the player, know exactly what's going to happen. You know everything will go down to absolute shit, which makes these opening moments really memorable. Furthermore, Blue Shift had the best Zen sequence by far. It's short, has a nice flow to it, and you actually get the feeling of going through an alien world, and not just a series of floating rocks. Though there is a short platforming segment here as well, however it's not nearly as annoying as the ones in Half-Life. And really, in general, Gearbox had done an amazing job at creating new maps for the expansions, at keeping recycled material to a bare minimum. Even then, the small parts they did recycle was used masterfully to logically connect the three separate timelines. Throughout both Opposing Force and Blue Shift, you'll find yourself in situations where you'll witness an event from the original game unfolding. For instance, at the beginning of Blue Shift, you can see Gordon traveling through the tram in Black Mesa inbound, thus making you the security guard Gordon sees at the start of Half-Life. There are many events like this, and I don't want to spoil them. Hell, even the tutorial sections differ from each other, and the one for Opposing Force is especially fun as it also blends in with the story because you can clearly see the G-Man observing your advanced training that you were suspiciously chosen for. There are also a ton of Easter eggs scattered throughout the levels, and these are always fun to find. Finally, if you want to see something interesting, open up the console in Blue Shift and type in the third person command. I guess Gearbox did recycle something. To sum everything up, both Opposing Force and Blue Shift are great expansion packs that fully complete the Half-Life 1 experience on the PC. I say PC because there was another expansion pack, Half-Life Decay, however this was released only for the PS2 and I have never played it. There is a mod for the PC, but apparently it's really buggy and can be a bitch to get running, and I might play this mod slash expansion pack sometime in the future, so maybe I'll do a video on it, or maybe not. As for Opposing Force and Blue Shift, I highly recommend both of them. You can always grab them for dirt cheap on Steam, and I'm sure you'll have a great time playing them. Thanks for watching, like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers! Oh, and please, I wish I had a VR set so I could play Half-Life Alyx.